Mike, thanks for taking the time to have a chat with me. My name's Mike as well, and I'm here chatting about ACT Group, Michael Richardson's company. Tell me a little bit about you and your companies, please.
Well, I'm Mike, as well as we just said. We are Tekmat Ltd, and the brand that we represent in the UK is IMCO Carbide, a US manufacturer of high-performance carbide cutting tools. We partnered with ACT Group and Mychael Richardson about 6 years ago, in mind that we were going to offer a number of technical distributors exclusive territories around the UK to market the IMCO brand. So Mychael covers the northeast and surrounding areas, and we've had a quite successful few years getting the brand to the UK. It's been the first time IMCO has really been marketed in the UK, so it's still relatively fresh to some people, and we were aware there's a very crowded marketplace, so we went in with the philosophy that to make people sit up and take notice, they needed to get the tools on the machines. So we've always been fairly liberal with sort of free trials and putting things out there, and let the technical guys at companies such as ACT Group go and do their job.
And where are you based, Mike?
We're right in the middle of the country, between Nottingham, Derby and Leicester, so the East Midlands.
So I used to live in Allestree in Derby.
Oh really? Just down the road.
Where are you?
Castle Donington.
Okay, I'll pretend to know exactly where that is, but I kind of know where it is.
East Midlands Airport is on the doorstep.
I know it a bit then, because I lived in Allestree about 10 years. Right, so do you buzz about and see Michael, or does Michael buzz to you? How does that work? Do you personally or do your team meet with Michael?
We've met a few times over the last few years. It's not a hugely regular meeting. It's a relatively simple relationship that we're here with the stocks and the technical backup if they need it, which most of the time they don't, to be fair. And our main job is kind of facilitating for them, so to allow them to get the tools out to the customers as quickly as possible, and then back up with stock and deliveries on the back of that.
It seems to me that Michael over the years has built up this layered infrastructure, so that he's got technical support, then he's got people supporting technical support, then there's the frontline people answering the phones, etc. Because he needs to balance off. And can you tell me how you feel about this? Because he needs people like you, of course, because ACT seemed to me, ACT Group, have to balance off prescribing the right cutting tool, which you and I chatted briefly about, but also speed. Because of course, if you prescribe, oh yeah, that's the right one, it'll be 3 weeks, it doesn't work, does it? So how do you help Michael to deliver on both of those promises, if you don't mind me asking, Mike? So just to repeat, it's actually getting the right tool for the job. I know you've just said there's a symbiotic relationship where you rely on his technical expertise and sometimes they'll come to you. So that's the first bit. How do you tick the box of getting the right cutting tool, and also speed? How do you do that? How do you do that, Tekmat?
The right tool for the job is just a communication issue. If they are going to tell us what material they're cutting, what type of machine they're trying to do, and what they're trying to achieve, then we can pick from our range of tools something that's going to suit the job. It's never going to be all the work they do. There's different things that may be better, and we would never push something that's not going to do the best job as far as we're aware. Okay. Once we've ascertained what sort of cutting tool is going to do the job, the catalogue that we produce that ACT distribute to their customers, I'd say there's 98% stock availability in the UK. Okay. We keep it all here because we know that if someone's got a job, they're not going to wait till a week on Tuesday to start the process. We deliver next working day to ACT, and we can drop ship if need be. But generally speaking, we like to keep enough stock in our bank and their bank to mean that their customers got stuff same day if need be. Okay. So it's really a case of communication with the stock levels, and if they've got a good runner for 6 months, they may be using 5 or 10 cutters a month, then we bump up the stocks to compensate, as long as we know.
Part of your skill and expertise comes from your experience in knowing stock levels. Is that right? Because you've got most stuff available, but the more popular stuff, you're able to anticipate and boost those stock levels. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, it's as simple as keeping a regular check on what moves and in what levels. And if anything starts to look a bit abnormal, then we'll sometimes ring the distributor and say, is this a go or is it a short-term thing? Just to make sure that they're not going to suddenly turn around and say, I need 5 of these, and you say, it's next week now. It's, again, relatively simple, but it just needs keeping on top of.
And talking of abnormal, so we're chatting in 2021, which I thought was going to be dead predictable. 2020, that's going to be dead predictable as well. Of course, it wasn't. So talking of abnormal, with you and everybody have had a couple of very strange years.
Yeah.
What have you learned? What's your biggest takeaway from that, Mike?
Well, one, that you can't rely on anything. But in terms of business-wise, it's obviously gone, particularly with the more advanced tooling that we supply, is quite heavily aerospace and high-tech industries based, and a lot of that has really slowed. There is nothing you can do about it in terms of you can't really go knocking on doors physically. They won't let you in, still a little bit, but also you can't push the distributors to promote the product when there's nothing to sell. So it's patience has been a big thing. But at the same time, we've got to keep the service levels for what's left out there to a high level to keep what business is going.
And has the market, have you noticed anything in the market, Mike, that's changed? How people buy, what people buy, just buyer behavior, I suppose. How is the end user, the people who sit behind the channels like ACT, how have they changed? Is there anything to mention on that subject?
Yeah, I mean, we don't get involved with the actual physical end user too much unless we're asked to, but there's definitely a case when you look at the supply chain with us as the brand supplier, then an ACT group as the actual local distributor, and then the user, that there might be sort of 3 banks of tools for one particular job. And of course that slows down, everyone pulls the horns in, and you've reduced your through flow, which for us comes very sharp because everyone has dropped their stocks by 10, 20, 30%, and it slows right down. Again, there's nothing you can do. It's people aren't willing to spend the money just in case the job finishes. Sure. And you have to be mindful that you can't reduce our stocks too much, because when it picks back up, if and when hopefully it does, that you're in a position to make sure things aren't stopping on our part. So
well, it's nice that we're still going, because a lot of people didn't make it through. And on the subject of just pulling the camera back for a second, Mike, and having a look at the market. Of course, you're not the only player out there. There are other people like you, and there are other people like ACT Group as well. On the subject of why the end user might choose IMCO and everything that you offer over other people, I'm just curious, Mike, is there anything that you would say in a nutshell as to why people might choose you, please?
In terms of the end user or the distributor?
Definitely the end user. It's all about the end user, simply because I would suggest that, you know, you and people like Mychael are trying to understand them in great detail. So why might they choose you over other people out there?
First and foremost, the tools have got to do the job. There's no point trying to sell something where someone else got a better product than you. And we, over in the States where these products are developed, there's a lot of big aerospace companies, which is where they do a lot of their testing. And we regularly outperform all the major brands in our price bracket, or compete on a level playing field. So there's not really, you're always going to get some jobs that you can't compete on, and other jobs which you win at. But we are happy with the quality of the tooling and the techniques used, to mean that we are on a good footing. And price-wise, the performance means that although the tools aren't on the lower end of the scale, it's a premium product. The value for money comes out the other end when the production is consistent, they get long tool life, and they get the quality they need. So we can only ask for people to try the tools, and hence that's why I said earlier that we do offer, you know, a try before you buy sort of policy. And then on the basis that the tooling does work, it's then backing it up with the service to mean that the stocks are there and the delivery is there next day for when required.
It seems to me, reading between the lines of what I think you're saying, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're not just trying to, it's not all about volume. Clearly volume is part of what you do. It seems to me, I might be putting words in your mouth here, there's a little shrug of the shoulders, say, look, we're really good over here, but over here, if there's people who can give better results, you know, longer performance or a better price point, then we just stay where we know you're honest enough not to just grab at things. You've got the long-term view. You know where you're strongest.
Yeah, we're not after the whole market because there's far too many people producing cheap carbide tooling, which will do a job, but that's where people don't necessarily require the tool life or the quality finish, for example, that we're looking for. We can't compete with that. We don't want to try and compete with that. So we focus on the areas where we can compete, which is the high quality value tooling. Like I said, the value is not in the lump of carbide that we're selling. It's in the job that it performs for the customer.
Okay. So the greater the understanding of the job, the more accurate the prescription, I suppose, which is where you both are. Yeah,
I mean, the perverse thing about our R&D guys over in America is that what they're trying to do is actually sell less tools because they're trying to get more tool life out of the job. So it's kind of a catch-22, which we all know about in this industry. But the only way we're going to stay at the head of the market is by continuing pushing it. And the development team over there, they're always looking for new ways of increasing production, increasing quality and consistency. And that's something that is a regular thing.
Yeah, I was chatting to Michael about this, where strangely, I'm with you 100%. Conversation we were having, where are we, in October, was about the fact that strangely Michael's spent over 10 years trying to get people to buy fewer cutting tools because they, you know, it's boring myself saying it now, but the more accurate the prescription, it's going to last longer.
Yeah,
might cost you 10 or 20% more, but if it's doubling the productivity, then it's a no-brainer.
It's the amount of times that people have said, oh, I can buy a similar tool for sort of half the price, and you say, well, you might be able to, but if you get 60-70% improvement in tool life, you've lost out. So you need to invest in it's not just the tooling as well, it's obviously the holders and the fixtures and fittings, you call, and all the whole kit, which we don't supply, but Mychael does, which gives you a complete package to produce a better product for the customers. And
it's about 6 years ago, did you say, there was the increased focus on the Inco brand in the UK because of things that happened with, brands buying brands. Is it about 6 years that Inco's been the bigger push in the UK, do you think? Yeah, it's been big in America for many years. But yeah, in the UK, it was relatively unheard of until about 6 years ago. Okay. Well, we've chatted for, 5 to 10 minutes, which is great. It's been really useful for me. Is there anything else we should be discussing? I've got one more question in my head, I suppose, Mike, which I'll come to in a second. Is there anything you wanted to ask me or mention before we disappear? No, it's all good from my point of view. Okay, cool. Because, of course, everything's so predictable year on year at the moment, 2022 is there. Yeah. I want to mention very briefly digital, okay? But before I go to digital, is there anything apart from, I think, people's increasing uptake of the digital communications that Michael's trying to exploit at the moment? Is there anything that you can see that might be impactful in 2022? What's going to happen? In terms of the digital marketing, or? In terms of what, your world, really, your relationships with your distributors, the guys and gals across in America. I'm asking if you've got a crystal ball, you know what I mean? So you can tell us all what's going to happen in 2022. I would love to be able to. Unfortunately, I'm as much in the dark as the next man. We're going to continue to push the boundaries of what the cutting tools we supply are capable of doing. Continue to offer the service to our distributors and enable them to do their job. I think a large part of our job is to make sure that the distributors don't have to think too much about it. It's hassle free.
that they know once we get something in the spindle and it's working, that there's going to be no problems. The consistency of the tool remains the same, the consistency of the service remains the same, and they can put that one to bed and get on with the next job. So that's really how I see us. But we can only continue to do that, and with the hope that the markets in manufacturing pick up as they just showing signs of doing now, and we get no other random viruses popping up in the horizon.
And continuation of supply is of particular importance, of course, to people like ACT Group. So with IMCO, you know, you find something that works, your ability to deliver the same thing to the same level of quality and speed. You're cool with all that, prepared for the. You've been sound so far, it seems to me. So you're comfortable with the infrastructure going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there was global supply issues of almost every material known to man, I think, in the last sort of 18 months with various things, really, with energy prices, with raw materials, with shipping, with COVID. It seems everything's been conspiring against us, but we've had good suppliers of the raw materials over at the manufacturing plant in America. We've had backups where need be, and we've also had good stocks to start with. Okay. So we've not really suffered any great problems, and because we've got a decent buffer of stock in the UK anyway, it's meant that we're prepared for a bit of disruption.
All right, well, good luck. Merry Christmas.
Likewise.
And thanks for chatting with me today.
No problem. Good to speak to you, Michael.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.